Now that I look back, I had two very, very narrow shapes, which I can describe now. Many years have passed. We were leaving Visakhapatnam harbor. Now, when a submarine leaves harbor, it stays on the surface to go out of the harbor. But once we are in sufficient water where we can dive, the submarine dives. Because the most important thing for a submarine is that it should not be detected by anybody. Nobody should know where the submarine is. That is the whole purpose of having a submarine, that the enemy must never come to know where you are. So if you continue on surface for some more time, the enemy can find out, oh, this person is heading in this direction generally. So the moment we get an opportunity, we dive and just disappear from the surface, so to speak. So here we were, and we decided to dive to 30 meters. This was about 3 hours after leaving the harbor, after leaving Visakhapatnam harbor. This I'm talking of 1997, when I was commanding a submarine called Arihant-class Kesari. And I was sailing that time. I had taken some training officers on board. These were the officers who had been selected for the perisher course, the submarine commanding officer qualifying course. So they were all very experienced submariners. So we have this. So you give them enough opportunity to sort of keep track. So here was this officer on the periscope, because when you're on surface, you're looking through a periscope before you dive. So he said the submarine is not going down. Now I could not understand why the submarine is not going down. When I say going down means it was not diving. That means we had created the angle to dive the submarine like that. The submarine dives at an angle. But sometimes what happens is the water conditions are such. The water conditions change. By the way, that is something you must understand. That the nature of the surface and the dive and the depths of water can be quite different from each other. It depends on salinity, it depends on temperature, and it depends on pressure. There are three factors which determine how the hydrology will be in that particular area. And we in submarines have to be very careful when we calculate all this, because our whole survival can depend on it, to understand the hydrology at that particular time. Every time a submarine leaves harbor, enters harbor, it checks what the hydrology is, so that it understands why the submarine is behaving in a particular manner when it is behaving in a particular manner. And how much is the hydrology having an effect on the submarine's maneuverability, on the submarine's ability to dive, etc. So here he kept saying the submarine is not diving. Now I had just entered harbor 2 days before that. So I thought to myself that obviously the nature of the surface could not have changed so much in 2 days that now, I came in perfectly well, and now when I'm going out, the submarine is not diving. And he kept saying submarine is not diving. So I looked at the depth gauge. We have a depth gauge which shows how much depth the submarine is going to, from 0 to 300 meters or 400 meters, whatever be the depth that submarine is designed for. So as you keep diving, the needle keeps moving up. And we also have an electronic depth gauge. So we have two, a manual depth gauge and an electronic, so that, if one fails, the other one is still available. So I looked at both, and both were showing that the boat is not diving. So I sort of thought to myself, what could be wrong? And I said, okay, we call it venting the depth gauge. That means you open the depth gauge, if there's an airlock in it, it goes away, and then you shut it again, and so the water flows freely inside and operates on the pressure sensor. The moment we vented the depth gauge, suddenly the needle shot up like that and went straight to 40 meters, 45 meters in 50 meters of water. So we were on the verge of actually hitting the bottom at 10 knots speed. 10 knots is about 20 kilometers per hour. We were going to hit the bottom of the sea. And it was just coincidence, or maybe sixth sense or whatever, that made me check this. Otherwise it would have been disaster. But we were able to, again, like I said, it's all about training. I, as a commanding officer, gave the orders, now started giving orders to salvage that position. Salvage that, that this emergency that we were facing, by giving whatever we have, a series of orders we give. But it was a good training of my crew that was able to respond to these orders immediately. Otherwise, I could have given an order, but if the person on the other side is not trained well enough, he may not be able to execute it. If I say, okay, pump out so-and-so thing, if he's not able to operate the pump fast enough, or he doesn't operate the correct pump, or he doesn't operate to the extent I want him to do it, it can be a problem. So this was actually later on, when we sort of saw where we were, we discovered that we were actually only 2 feet from hitting the bottom of the sea before we pulled out. Right. So that was, I think, the most risky experience I've had. And it was all again due to human error. This officer did not realize that there could be some other reason why the depth gauge is not working. He kept saying it's not going down, it's not going down. Not realizing that if a boat is not going down, there could be many reasons why it's not going down, and not just the hydrology. But this was something that we learned a lot of lessons from. So every experience that you have to learn something from it. That okay, we made a mistake. We must not do it, and this mistake never gets repeated. So this was one experience.
Serving the Air Force for over 31 years was full of dynamic challenges and required single-minded determination. I am Group Captain Rajesh Pandey, and I'll guide you live on Unacademy to give flight to your dreams.
Download the Unacademy Learning app and attend my free live classes.